A very good warm. Oh, we're in Honduras. We've just taken off in the Fenix A319. We've just taken off from Toncontin, runway 02. We're just on a basic climb and a heading at the moment. We're going to be doing the LEPA1. Let me remind myself what it's called. The LEPA1 Bravo arrival for the RNAV 02 with the TNT transition, which is wonderful. I mean, the arrival is just a straightforward southeasterly heading and northeasterly heading, but the RNAV 02 is this lovely 360 circular route in this mountainous bowl. And the wonderful thing about this approach is that this approach point is between TG012 and 011, and if you're visual you then continue for this sort of blind left-hand 90-degree turn to the runway, and it's absolutely wonderful. But what I want to do initially is just to go through the flight director, because what we're going to do when we come to do this approach is we're going to fly the flight director right down to the numbers. Now, strictly speaking, you wouldn't do that in the real world. I'm just going to go inside the aeroplane because it's much quieter. You, strictly speaking, wouldn't do that in the real world. You would switch off your flight directors and switch it to what they call the birdie here track, FPA mode, and just eyeball it. Just look out the window and just you know fly a visual circuit. But we're not going to do that. We're going to use the built-in systems to, you know, the flight director that will guide us literally to the threshold of runway 02. And the flight director is here, these green crosshairs, and in some aircraft it could just be an inverted V, okay, and that's the flight director, and underneath it you've got the actual attitude of your aircraft, and you would fit your V into the flight director V, you know, by maneuvering your airplane, pulling up, pushing down, left or right. And here with the crosshairs we would just keep them in the middle, absolutely in the middle. If the vertical line goes to the left, we would follow it to the left and just keep these two green lines meeting in the middle like that. And whatever your FMA is set to, that is your autopilot panel. At the moment we're in heading mode, so it's taking its cues from the heading. So if I just change it now, because we're going to do the LEPA1 Delta arrival as I said, and that starts at LEPAX at flight level, 2000 feet or higher. If I just change the heading knob, okay, you'll see that the vertical track, okay, just goes to the left, and what the aircraft does is it just banks to the left just to keep that one centered in that yellow that you probably make it out in the middle there, the little center marking, okay, and that's a yellow circle. You would keep those two crosshairs there. So let's keep that turn going around now, and we're just going to come back onto LEPAX, and the vertical line, the vertical green line, I'm going to change the mode here so we can actually see where the heading bug is. There we go. And the vertical horizontal line here, which denotes the vertical track, changes according to the pitch attitude, or you know, you might have a flight level higher or lower than your present one, or vertical speed set, or you might be climbing on indicated airspeed mode, and that would then move up or down accordingly. And again, your job is to keep it in the middle, which is exactly what the autopilot is doing in this case. Right, so with that in mind, when we come to do the approach, that final left-hand turn, okay, we would just manually fly the aircraft so that these two lines are always in the middle, and if we do that, the airplane will go to the, you know, runway 02 threshold, okay, because it's programmed to do that, because we're going to be in what's called approach mode. So I'm going to tell it now to fly direct to LEPAX. Okay, so let's do that now. So direct LEPAX, insert, and it'll now change from heading mode to managed lateral navigation, LNAV, and you can see it's now flying to LEPAX. And what I need to do is to enter an altitude. So we need just to brief ourselves a little bit on this approach. Not that one, it's this one. So the approach starts at TG015 at 7,000 feet there. Okay, so I'm going to dial that in. That's our initial altitude. So let's dial that in now. 7,000 feet, come on. Okay, and we should have a top of descent mark at some point. Not that I can see it. But what we'll do, anyway, because it's LEPAX at flight level 120 or above, I put constraints on here, you'll see the actual constraints. So I'm going to tell it to descend now in managed mode. I'm going to press a button and the aircraft will take care of the vertical navigation, and it'll get me down to 7,000 feet. The QNH is 3012. What I need to do as a matter of urgency though is to put the performance data in. Let me do that now. So we're in descent. The next page is the approach, and now I need to look at the approach weather. So we'll go to my flights, go to weather. Well, of course there's no weather shown here, so let me get let me get it on the Navigraph charts. There it is. So I'll just enter that data in. You can see the airplane's now descending. So the data is 3012 for the QNH. The temperature is 20. The wind is 230 at 4 knots. 30 at 4 knots. Now that's a bit of a tailwind. I'm not really going to worry about that. The runway's not overly long, but it's long enough. As long as it just means that our speed on approach is going to be a little bit higher. Just need to be mindful of it. So 4429 is the missed approach altitude, and as I said, the missed approach altitude is here. That is after 012, before 011, and if you're not visual at this point, you have to do the missed approach, which is basically follow this track, the runway heading, then 360, and then 024 to Melvo 9000. Okay, so 4429, I need to dial into the barrow for the missed approach, and the aircraft will call minimums at that point. So here we've got the approach, and we know that it starts at 015. But first of all, we've got a grandstand view, because we're going to get to this waypoint TG050. It's not going to overfly it. It's going to just turn slightly to the west of this waypoint, but then it leads pretty much to the VOR Tango November Tango, which is the transition for this approach, and that is literally, you can see the runway marking there. Tango November Tango is just to the south of the runway, so we're going to have an absolute grandstand view of the runway. And the terrain is not dissimilar to what we've got here. In fact, that's probably Toncontin over there. And you think, well, that's a lot of. Well, are they really big? Well, they are. They're deceptively big mountains. This is, this is why this whole approach is a great big curvaceous curve. And so the airplane's now slowing to 250. Not doing a very good job of it, I must say. But we should be able to. We really should help it. So speed limit exceeded. Yes, of course it has. So let's give it a little bit of assistance, courtesy of our speed brake. Okay. So, bearing in mind that the approach is this curvaceous, steep, descending left-hand, continuous left-hand turn and then this blind 90-degree turn to finals, it's actually quite hard to slow the aircraft down. So we're going to prepare for that. We're going to slow it down manually on our own, some point here, sort of after TG006 and before the final approach fix, TG015. Okay, and we're going to do that just to help it slow down. We're not going to slow right down because otherwise it becomes very laborious, but because we're going downhill at speed, it's, you know, it is going to be hard to slow the airplane down. So we're just going to be mindful of that and trying to help it. So we're below 10,000, so the passengers are strapped in. I'm going to put my landing lights on, and I'm quite sure why ATT is flashing at me, but I'm going to pretend I didn't see that. And whilst we've got a performance calculator, a landing performance calculator here, it's a fairly short runway. Let's have a look at the numbers. It is 2,000 meters. Okay, so not the shortest, but not the longest. And I'm going to go auto brakes too. Right then, so I'm just going to let the aeroplane fly just for a moment or two, and we'll give you a nice view of the approach as we head towards Toncontin. And we'll see the runway, you know, the airport right down, just, I mean, we'll overfly it pretty much. Okay, so I'll leave this view for a moment or two. Right then, so we've just gone over TNT. You can see the airport right on our nose, and when you look around, you think, well, that's really they're big, they're hills really, but it's all deceptively big, and the altitude of the airport is 3,300 meters. Let's get back inside. So we're now starting an approach, okay, and TG015 is over here. So we've got a few miles left to run. So we're not going to slow down quite yet. So if I just bring the chart back in, you'll see that the airport elevation is 3,300, and the MSAs around us are to the west 8,400 feet, to the northeast 8,600, and to the southeast 7,700. Okay, so actually, you know, it is quite high terrain around here. So anyway, let's have a look. We're just coming round, and you'll remember from a previous video that the Airbus being fly-by-wire, you need to tell it to go into approach mode, so approach phase I should say. Okay, and it will do that automatically. It will do that, but for any reason, if you want to set it manually yourself, you just click left 6 and then it'll say confirm. You click left 6 again, then you will be automatically in approach mode, and you'll see that the managed speed bracket here will disappear, and the aircraft will expect you to slow down to flap speed and you know, for onboard landing. You need to tell it you're going to land because it's a fly-by-wire aircraft. Okay, so we've got now about 7 or so miles, probably a little bit more because this is a curved track, to TG015, and I'm going to dial in now I think the missed approach will be say 4,400. I'm going to dial that in, and it's on managed mode, and the aircraft will descend on its own. So now it's got speed brake. See, my speed brake is playing, it's not very good at the moment. If I close it, it doesn't always, there you go, see, it sort of shudders. I don't know what's wrong with it, but sometimes I think it's closed and actually it's not. Okay, so we've now got the vertical deviation and the lateral deviation for the approach. So I'm going to slow the airplane down now, and I'm going to go down initially to 180 knots. Okay, and we're at flat limiting speed, so I can go flap 1.
Flaps 1.
So we're in managed descent, so the aircraft will start to descend, and it's you see, we just passed a waypoint which is a sort of a round magenta round circle on the flight plan, and that's the point at which the aircraft will switch to approach mode. So it is in approach mode, so we can now go flaps 2.
Flaps 2.
Okay, so we're now pretty much at 180 knots. I'm going to get my turn off light and my nose takeoff light. I'm doing that now because we're a single pilot and it's very hard to do that and fly the aircraft at the end. And I'm going to go to approach mode. Okay, and that means that the lateral and the vertical descent is going to be taken care of by the aircraft, and it will begin a descent with the procedure, and that means that the flight directors will take us right to the threshold. Okay, so I'm going to just slow down a little bit more, down to 160. And we need to remind ourselves of what our speeds are. So our approach speed is 123 and our landing speed is 118. Okay, so the airplane will continue to descend. Okay, we're in approach mode, we're in managed and LNAV, and got manual speed. Now I could just click speed here, push it in, and that will take it to managed speed, and because we are in approach mode, it will slow down incrementally to the final approach speed 123. Okay, but not all the way down. It will depend on flaps and gear, and it will know which of the, you know, what your flap setting is, so it will slow down to the appropriate speed for that flap setting. Okay, so we're just continuing now our approach. We've got 7 pretty much to run to our final approach turn. So I'm now going to slow the aircraft right down. So we're going to go to manage speed. We can put our gear down. Remember, our missed approach point is after TG012, and we're going to go flap 3.
Flaps 3.
And now we're going to go flap full. Okay, as much drag as possible. We're going to arm our speed brake. Okay, and our auto brakes are on. So our missed approach point is between this current waypoint and the next one, and you just saw appearing on the screen the blue line, which is our missed approach procedure. And the missed approach procedure, it does state very clearly you need to go onto lateral navigation, RMP, maintain the RMP track, max 175, and re-engage LNAV by TG011. Okay, so in other words, put the automatics back on. So we're now at final approach speed. We're completely dirtied up, so full flap, gear is down, auto brakes are on, and we are perfectly on the vertical profile, and we're perfectly on the lateral profile for the approach, and we're at the missed approach point coming up very soon, 4,400 feet. I'm just going to zoom out a little bit. and I'm going to fly those crosshairs all the way to the runway threshold. Okay, and it's a blind turn because we're going to be turning to the left, but parts of the cockpit might obscure our view. Okay, but the airport is on the captain's side, so you would normally just look out the window. We can't do that in the SIP. So autopilot is coming off. I'm going to stay with the auto throttle, of course, and I'm going to just fly those crosshairs. I'm going to keep these crosshairs right in the middle. So we're right on the speed. The aircraft should call out minimums unless it's already done that. I didn't hear it. So I'm just going to keep those crosshairs right in the middle, and at one point it's just going to start going to the left. I'm going to follow it. There it goes. I'm going to just follow it, keep following it, and we will end up at the runway threshold. Just going to, to the best of my ability, keep those crosshairs right in the middle. You can just see the runway approaching.
Caution, taxiway. Caution,
Yeah, well, that's
taxiway.
RAS telling me I'm going to land in the taxiway. Well, what does it know? It's made for FSX. Okay, just keep that turn going, and I'm just going to round out a little bit as per the flight directives, and we're just a little bit high, but we're okay.
Pull up.
Okay,
Pull up.
just straightening out,
Pull up.
and we're going to retard. And this is about
Spoilers up.
getting it on the ground,
Reverse
not about
3.
smoothness. That was a bit
remaining.
rough though. 80 knots manual
Auto brake
braking.
off.
900
70 knots.
remaining.
Okay, and now I'll just take the next turn off and clean up the aircraft the other side of the hold. So yeah,
600
not a pretty
remaining.
landing. Not a pretty landing, but you know, that is about getting it down. Yeah, I'd be happy if it was smoother, but anyway, I think you get the point. We just flew the flight directives because they were correctly set on the approach mode with, I think it's called IAMS, IAMS, so internal approach, but I don't know, system. So it's got all the charts built into it, so it knows exactly, you know, how to fly these approaches. So right, I'm on the taxiway. I can clean up the aircraft, and that is nearly the end of the video, because what I'm going to do next is I'm going to do the same thing in the 737-600. Okay, see you in a bit. I'm not quite sure what that power engine's doing. How dare it do that? Scratch my paintwork. It's shocking, isn't it? South America. Right, I'll see you in a bit. Well, back to the stream. We're in the PMDG 737-600 with an Aero-Mexico livery that I made a long time ago. Toncontin is somewhere behind us beneath all those clouds. It's a little bit convective at the moment. We bounced around. We're just taking a track now direct LEPAX for the LEPA1 Bravo at flight. We're at 12,000 feet. I'm just going to tell the aircraft now to fly direct to LEPAX. That seems... has it dropped off? It has dropped off. Why is that? Let's go LEPAX. Pop it in there. And we'll go LNAV. Now the aircraft will fly direct LEPAX, and we'll get rid of this disco. I just want to double check that the waypoint after LEPAX is TG051, which it is. So I'm just going to get rid of that disco. Don't know why LEPAX disappeared, but then it's a Boeing, I guess that's normal. Okay, so PMDG haven't yet implemented IAMS, the Integrated Approach Management System. So in other words, you should be able to press approach as you can on the Airbus, and it will fly the approach right down to the ground for you. But what we can do is fly LNAV and VNAV, which we are on LNAV, and now we're on the VNAV as well. And when we get to the missed approach point, which if you remember is between TG012 and 011, you would switch off your autopilot, switch off your flight directors and eyeball, look out the window and land the aeroplane manually. But we could still continue with things if we dial in the threshold altitude 3,300. So that'll give us lateral and vertical guidance to the threshold. So we're going to give that a whirl. Alright, so we're now beyond LEPAX. So we've started the procedure, the star. So LEPAX is at or above 12,000. The next one is TG051, and that's at or above 10,000. And if you remember, TNT's at or above 8,000, and then we get into the actual approach itself, and then TG015 is at 7,000. So what we can do, we can dial in 7,000, because that's the beginning of the approach itself. So let's dial in 7,000. We're in VNAV, and we're in LNAV, and we should have, there we go, in green up here, although you might not be able to read it now, it should say top of descent. And shortly after that, in fact, let's just change that image. This is a this is the traditional screen you would see on the NG. Here we go. Top of descent and decel. They're very close together, and the reason that decel is there is because that's the point at which it would go past 10,000 feet, and that's when the on VNAV the 250 speed limit below 10,000 would take effect. So the aircraft is not going to do anything till it gets to top of descent, and we are on VNAV, so it will automatically descend to 7,000, and it will automatically reduce speed to 250 knots. Okay, so we've got rejected takeoff on the auto brake, but we don't want that. What we want is auto brake 2. That'll do. It's a 2,000 meter long runway, so that should be enough. And just going to align the heading bug roughly, and it's all going to happen very quickly, but we will try and maintain control of the speed. So the first thing to do is go to the FMC init-ref and select your landing reference, and it's a high airport, 3,300 feet. It's a shortish runway, 2,000 meters. I'm going to go flaps 40, so I click right 3. It's going to be bounced around a bit, it's hard to click on buttons, and then I'm going to click that into right 4, and that sets the target VREF, the landing speed, but my approach speed is going to be slightly higher, 127. Okay, that will appear on the PFD, yeah, as a visual reminder. Now the aircraft, I don't know if you can see, the engines were just momentarily spooling back, and the aircraft is now slowing. Okay, it's getting ready to get to the top of descent. Okay, it's doing all this on its own in VNAV. It's managing the altitude, the constraints, and the speed, and the LNAV, of course, because we're in LNAV as well. So the heading towards the runway 022, I think it was. I'm just going to dial that in to my heading bug as a visual cue for me. 02, I think it's 021 actually. Let's look it up. Let's do it properly. Airports, Toncontin, runways. 02 is 020. There you go. 020. There we go. So I've got the heading bug set now to the runway heading, and the aircraft is still slowing down It's at the top of descent, so it's coming down now to 7,000, which is the altitude at which this approach begins here. If you press data, you get all the constraint information shown on the waypoints, and you'll see the aircraft is now slowing because it knows it's going to get to 10,000 very, very soon. I'm going to let it manage that. Less work for me. Let's look outside. There's the airport. It's there, right in front of us. And again, it's all very deceptively high here. So that's 3,300, and if you remember the MSAs to the west are 8,400, to the northeast 8,600, and to the southeast it's 7,700. So yeah, you know, these are bigger than the hills, aren't they? Okay. So we're going to try this. I've not tried it before. So we're just coming down through 10,000. Speed is reducing to 250 for the speed limit below 10,000. Let's get our landing lights on. Landing lights are on, and we've got auto brake set to 2. Happy with that. I'm going to zoom in once on the map now. You've got the missed approach procedure, which is the blue line here. And the missed approach is essentially runway heading to TG009, then it's a left turn northerly track 360 to TG006, climbing all the way to Melvo 9000. And the missed approach point is 4429, and we could dial it in here on the barrow, but you just have to click and hold this knob for a very long time, so I'm really not going to worry about it. You could set it to the radar altitude, which is 1141, but again, I'm not going to worry about it. So aircraft is managing. You've got the vertical deviation index, the little magenta triangle here. That's slap bang in the middle where we want it to be. It's shown again here on the nav display. Again, slap bang in the middle where we want it to be. That's George doing the flying. He's going to do a much better job than me. The aircraft is decelerating all the time. I'm just going to say LNAV and VNAV all the way down, and when we get past the missed approach point, we'll by then have dialed in 3,300 feet, which is the threshold elevation, and that way we'll get vertical and lateral guidance to the runway. That's the theory anyway. So 215 on the speed. We can give it some flap now. So let's go flap 1, which is slats, and I think one stage coming out at the back. Yeah, little pocket rocket this, and I'm gonna arm my speed brake. I've done that with my honeycomb, so we've got speed brake is armed. And we're just coming up to TG015. I'm going to dirty the aircraft up again to flap 5. And you can do up to flap 5, 250 knots in the 737. So flap 5 set and checked. And remember, my approach speed is going to be 127. And the aircraft on VNAV is slowing itself down. Okay, so it's targeting 154. Let's look at these flight directors. They're right in the middle. George doing a much better job than I can. I'm happy for him to continue flying. Thank you very much. And we're just going to be on the approach shortly. So that's the initial approach fix. On the vertical deviation index, if you're high or low, and we're just slightly low at the moment, it tells you what the discrepancy is here. I think, there you go, 37 feet. I'll forgive it. So, it's targeted 154, we're on 153. That's pretty good. Okay, and it's going to continue descent now down to the missed approach point, 4,400. Okay, and it's set and checked. We're still on the VNAV path, and it is still descending, and it is on target. We've got the little triangle here telling us, and we've got the little triangle here. So that's the vertical component of our VNAV, that's the horizontal component. So we're going to slow the aircraft down even more so we can dirty up so gear can come down. It's all working very, I don't know why it's a bit jerky, I don't know why. Anyway, gear's coming down and we can go flaps 15.
2500.
So flaps are running 15, set, checked, and the aircraft's going to slow to 142. The RMP is 0.30, and that's what's required for the approach. So we should really be able to set approach mode on. I'm not quite sure why the PMDG doesn't do it. Maybe they haven't implemented it, but I'm just trying to work a shortcut really for my air pilots. For those that fly the 737 into an airport like this, then yeah, it's nice to be able to do it with the electronics. Okay, so we are now 1400 above the missed approach point, and that's coming up, as I said, between TG012 and TG011. I'm going to zoom into the map. Okay, so we've got about 1200 now to go, so I'm going to now set in 3300, which is the threshold of the runway. Now again, just as a reminder, this is not how they do it, okay? Definitely not how they do it. I'm going to go full flap, so flap 40. Okay, the aircraft should slow down then to VREF, and I'm just going to give it that extra 5. Okay, so speed intervention, still on VNAV. Speed intervention button means that it remains on VNAV, but you can control the speed. So 132 is VREF plus 5. We're at the missed approach point, so the autopilot's off, and I'm going to switch the auto throttle off as well. I'm going to match my throttle positions with what's shown on the indicators here, and I'm going to keep those crosshairs right in the middle. I'm going to do my best on this. Yeah, I don't know, you can see them there, just there. So I'm right in the middle at the moment, and I'm trying not to speed up. I don't want to go fast, otherwise I'll just, I'll float. So there we go. It's coming around to the left. Just keep that turn coming, and it's going to fly us hopefully straight to the runway threshold. Terrain, pull up. I know. We'll have RAS squawking at us. Taxiway in a second. Keep that turn coming, keep that turn coming, keep that turn coming. And you can see the runway just appearing just there at the top left of the screen. keep that turn going, keep it going. This is all manual, a bit slow, but that's okay because VRAF we're looking at 127 now. Okay, then round out. Okay, rounding out,
Sync rate.
and 50 above the threshold,
30.
retarding, holding centre line, reverses, and we're decelerating, and manual braking. Okay, so that worked. Okay, and we're going to make this Bravo turn off, and I'm going to come to stop on the taxiway where I would normally clean up, but I'm happy with that. And off we come. We'll just go to the other side of the hold, which means you're no longer on the active. And now just clean up the aircraft. So let's just come to a stop, and I'll get the park brake on so we don't roll anywhere. There we go. Well, I hope that was useful. Toncontin again, 737 NG, and that worked well. You wouldn't do that in the real world, but you know, needs must. We haven't got onboard approach navigation yet. I'm sure it will be forthcoming, so it's all good. We have a technique. Alright gents, I hope you enjoyed it, and see you on the next one. Bye now.